What is going on, you guys? Today I have another video review for you. This one is from The Nomadic Journey, and the title is Cost of Living in Bali, Indonesia, 2025, Full Monthly Breakdown for Expats and Nomads. Let's get into it. By the way, the title of this video is a joke. You're going to find out why these people love living in this place.
Bali's always been seen as one of the cheaper places to live in Southeast Asia, but in 2025, that picture's a little more complicated. Prices have gone up in a lot of areas, especially in the south. And if you've been watching videos or hearing people talk about how cheap it is to live here, you might not be getting the full story. Some people get by on less than 1,000 a month. Others spend triple that without even realizing it. It all comes down to where you stay, what you eat, how you get around, and the kind of setup you're actually looking for. And what looks affordable at first can start to add up fast when you factor in the things nobody really talks about, like visa fees or just how much more expensive Western stuff is compared to local options. So if you're moving to Bali or planning to stay a little longer, this video is going to show you what it actually costs to live here. You'll see how much you need if you're trying to keep things as cheap as possible, and what kind of place you'd be living in with that budget. And if you're going for something a bit more comfortable, you'll see what that looks like too, and how much extra it takes to get there. Alright, let's get into it. Let's start with rent, since that's where most of your monthly budget usually goes. If you're trying to keep things more affordable, guest houses are one of the most common choices. You get a private room, usually with a bathroom and either a fan or AC. Some places offer a shared kitchen, and once in a while, you'll find a room with a small kitchen built in. Prices for a guest house are usually around $200 a month, which makes it one of the most budget-friendly options. Now, if you're going for something more comfortable, villas offer a completely different living setup. These are full houses, usually in quieter areas with more space and better design. A lot of them have private pools, enclosed gardens, and a more modern layout overall. They're built for longer stays, which means better natural light, proper working areas, and a stronger, more reliable internet connection. And even though they're more expensive, that extra comfort makes a big difference if you're planning to stay a few months or work remotely. Most decent villas go for around $1,000 a month, sometimes a little less if you're outside the most popular areas. Food is another category where
Okay, let's touch on that. Obviously, that's pretty insane. I mean, I just did a video about this with Bangkok, Thailand, right? Where rent for a really nice apartment, pool, and gym, it was about $250 a month, ranging to maybe 450, 500 max, right? If you negotiate maybe like a 6 month to a year at least. But this is pretty damn good too. I mean, like you saw that first one, right? It was about 200 a month. Maybe the internet speed could be variable, whether it's good or not. But the second one he was talking about with the villa, I think you can make sure to install like it's like Starlink, because that's actually out in Bali, Indonesia as well. You could get some really good internet either way. Just make sure that it gets installed. So you could still actually go with the 200 option or that villa. Basically, what he was saying was, if you want to spend a little bit more, 1,000 is like the ceiling for that. Like you don't need to spend more than that for rent, which is obviously super damn good compared to, rent in the U.S. And obviously he's going to talk about food and other things here. So cool video so far.
costs can change a lot depending on what you're going for. If you stick with local food and eat at warungs, which are small family-run restaurants, meals are really affordable. Dishes like nasi goreng or mee goreng usually start around 25,000 rupiah, which comes out to about $1.50. Even though they're simple places, most warungs are clean, organized, and serve decent food. It's not fancy, but you're not likely to get sick either. For a lot of people, it becomes the go-to option for everyday meals. But if you want Western food, the prices jump pretty quickly. Meals like burgers, pizza, or pasta usually fall somewhere between $6 and $10 depending on the place in the dish. Compared to local food, it's a big difference. And if you eat that way all the time, your monthly spending adds up fast. Still on the topic of food, there's also
Yeah, so obviously, like you don't have to go for Western food. That could be like a treat for you if you want, like a burger. I did that probably more than I should have, but obviously he said that was about $6. I mean, truthfully, in the U.S., burgers like if you get the whole meal, right, the French fries, the drink, etc. That could be probably $15, 20. So, I'm kind of surprised it's $6 in Bali. But at the same time, I'm not, since there's so many foreigners there. Um, and then the other part, actually, like local dishes, that was a good range. He mentioned it was like $1 to $2. That's pretty common. I've even had one that was like, it was like 79 cents US dollars. And I was blown away by that. Obviously, you can get that in different places in like Southeast Asia or even like Latin America too. Like Vietnam, Thailand, maybe like Philippines, even like Colombia, for example. So different spots there.
grocery shopping. But to be honest, it's not something people do to save money. If anything, it usually ends up costing more than just eating out. If you shop at places like Pepito, Bintang, or Grand Lucky, you'll find a lot of imported items, but the prices are high. Things like cheese, cereal, sauces, or wine can get really expensive. A lot of it is priced the same as a Western restaurant. So if you're buying that kind of stuff, you're not saving anything. You're just paying to cook it yourself. Even local products don't always come out cheaper. If you go to the market, buy vegetables, rice, eggs, and try to make a full meal, the cost is often the same as just grabbing something at a warung. Getting around in Bali is pretty straightforward. Almost everyone rents a scooter. It's the fastest and cheapest way to move, especially in areas where traffic gets crazy. Monthly rental prices start around $60 for a basic model and can go up to $100 or more if you want something newer or more powerful. It also gives you way more freedom to explore. You can get to places that are harder to reach by car or where drivers just aren't willing to go. If you're visiting spots that are more remote or want to move on your own schedule, having a scooter makes a big difference. The only thing is, traffic here can get pretty chaotic, especially in tourist-heavy areas. A lot of roads are narrow, filled with potholes, and there's barely any street lighting at night. So if you're not used to driving in those conditions, it takes some getting used to. If you're not comfortable riding a scooter, there's always Gojek and Grab. You can order a car or a motorbike directly from your phone. A short ride on the back of a scooter usually costs around $1, but if you're booking a car, expect to pay closer to $3 for the same distance. It's still cheap compared to most Western countries, but more expensive than renting a scooter. If you're planning to hit the gym while you're in Bali, it's actually pretty affordable. A single session usually costs a little over $3, but most people just pay monthly, which comes out to around $16. Most gyms at that price are pretty average. You've got enough equipment to get a decent workout in. Basic machines, free weights, sometimes a small stretching area, and usually some kind of air conditioning. Nothing fancy, but it works. That's what most gyms are like around the island. There are some more upscale places too with extra features, but unless you're after something specific, you probably won't need anything more than the basics. A lot of the beaches in Bali look like they're free, but in reality, many of them charge a small entrance fee, usually around $1. It's not a big deal, but if you're hitting multiple beaches every day, especially over a longer stay, those small fees can start to show up in your costs. This happens more.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, right? Like that can rack up, so you can definitely like watch. You should watch your budget with that one. But again, like really, unless you're overdoing it, right? Like partying too much, et cetera. Like that's unlikely to happen, especially like compared to what you'd be paying in the U.S. anyways. Like in the U.S., you're probably more likely to stay home and not spend anything because you're trying to save. And at least in somewhere like here, you can actually live a little bit more. I mean, that wasn't much to like park and enjoy the beach for the day, and you're probably not going to be doing that every day. I mean, you might more often, like if you surf or something, but still, like if you're doing that once a week, it's like $1 to $2 a week for that. And what he was saying earlier, like it's good to learn how to ride the bike. Definitely make sure that you get some lessons on that one, because the biking can be a little bit crazy, just like in other places like Thailand and Vietnam. Um, and the more confident the bikers are, you can see them like they'll go on the sidewalks where there's like cracked bricks and things like that, but they're used to it, right? So it's not a big deal. The bike in the rain, right? Have their ponchos on. It can be a little bit intense. So definitely, if you need to, I would really recommend looking into like some type of travel insurance, or something like that, just to make sure that you stay safe. Because that can be dangerous, especially if you're not used to riding a bike. And I see a lot of foreigners, they're not wearing their helmets, which is obviously not a good idea. So just keep that in mind, because that's an easy way to get around the island, but also you want to make sure that you know what you're doing.
Often in the southern part of the island, which also happens to be where the most beautiful beaches are. Think white sand, dramatic cliffs, and that mix of turquoise and blue water. They're the ones you see all over Instagram, and yeah, they're worth visiting. On the other hand, beaches closer to areas like Canggu and Kuta are usually free to access. They're not as scenic, but they have more built-up areas and better infrastructure. They're easier to reach and don't usually charge any entrance fee. Another cost that can come with beach days is if you're into surfing. If you're looking to rent a board, it's pretty straightforward. Most places charge between $5 and $10 for a couple of hours depending on the beach and the kind of board you're getting. If you're just starting out and want to take a lesson, expect to pay somewhere between $20 and $30 for a 1-hour private session with an instructor. And if you're joining as a pair or in a small group, the price usually goes down a bit per person, depending on how many people are in the class. And to wrap up the whole beach topic, there's also the option of spending the day at a beach club. You'll find them all over Bali, and the price really depends on the vibe of the place. Some are pretty simple, others go all out with live music, big pools, and full-on food and drink service. Atlas Beach Club is one of the biggest ones on the island, and it's worth checking out if you're into that kind of scene. You can spend the whole day there, and depending on the package, it can get pretty expensive. But there's also a cheaper online ticket you can buy starting at around $7. That one includes entry, a free drink, and access to the pools and most of the main areas, which is already a great deal for what you're getting. If you want to book that ahead of time, the link's down in the description of this video. Just click it, reserve your ticket, and you're good to go. If you're planning to work online while you're in Bali, you'll probably want to know what the co-working situation looks like. A lot of guest houses and hotels already offer pretty decent Wi-Fi, which is enough for most people. But if you need something faster, more stable, or just want a quieter place to focus, co-working spaces are a solid option. Most co-working spots charge somewhere between $100 and $150 per month. A lot of them also double as cafes, and when you sign up for a plan, you usually get a discount on food and drinks too. One more thing to factor into your monthly costs is your phone plan. Most people go with Telkomsel or XL Axiata, the two main providers in Bali, and the prices are actually really low. You can get around 60 gigabytes of data for about $29, which is more than enough for most people. Coverage is solid across the island, even in more remote areas, and it's easy to find places selling SIM cards.
I think that point about a co-working space, just to make sure that you have good internet, that's a good one. right? Just in case your guest house doesn't have the best internet or you can't get it installed there. So let's use that budget that he mentioned, right? So 200 plus 100 to 150 for the co-working space. So that brings you to 300 or 350. Or if it's like the nice villa, right? Or maybe you don't even need the extra Wi-Fi and the co-working space. Maybe you just want to get out and work somewhere that's not at home. A lot of people like that idea, so they can separate, work in their home relaxing space. I mean, even that was 1,000. That means it would be 1,150 or something like that. It was just still really good. Obviously, comparing all this to whatever you're probably paying in the U.S. or insert Western country here.
A small cost that a lot of people forget to budget for is laundry. Most places you'll stay don't come with a washing machine, so people usually drop their clothes off at a local laundry shop. It's usually charged by weight, and the average is around 60 cents per kilo. Another thing you'll need to include in your budget is the visa. There are two main types that most people end up using. The first one is the B1 tourist visa. It costs $35 and gives you 30 days in the country. You can extend it once for another 30 days, but after that, you'll need to leave Indonesia. A lot of people fly to another country nearby, like Thailand or Malaysia, spend a few days there, and then come back to restart the process. So besides the visa fees, you've also got to account for flights and any extra travel costs that come with that. Then there's the B211A visa, which is also used for tourism and is common among digital nomads. It gives you 60 days right away, and then you can renew it twice, staying up to 6 months without leaving the country. The visa itself costs about twice as much as the B1, and you'll usually need to go through an agency to help you get it, which adds some extra fees. So if you go with the B211A, you'll spend more on getting the visa through an agency. If you go with the B1, you'll spend more on flights every 2 months. In the end, the total cost ends up being pretty similar, so it really just depends on what makes more sense for you. There are other visa options available too, depending on how long you plan to stay or what you're doing in Bali, but these two are by far the most common. And because visa rules can change, it's always a good idea to check with immigration or a local agency to make sure everything's up to date.
Yeah, and one last thing here too, by the way. So the visa, like when you have to do like a visa run, for example, after you've gone through your 30 days or your 60 days or whatever it happens to be at the time, um, just keep this in mind because sometimes the visa rules change or the immigration rules change. Because I've seen people get sort of pulled over by the immigration officers or get stuck because they've done that a bunch of times in a row. Like in Thailand, I'm not sure if Bali is as strict, for example. And sometimes they change the rules. Like I know, like in Thailand, for a while, you got a 90-day for certain countries. Obviously, you got a 90-day on arrival visa, so you could just stay for 90 days, and then that's when you could do the visa run or the visa extension and pay for that. And then they changed it. Like when I got there, it was like only 30 or 45 days, right? And it was like they just changed it as soon as I got there. So I was like, oh man, like why did they do that? But then they changed it back afterwards. So that's a long way of saying just keep in mind the immigration rules.
So in the end, the real cost of living in Bali depends on how you set up your day-to-day life. If you're keeping things basic, staying in a guest house, eating mostly local food, renting a scooter, and sticking to essentials, it's totally possible to live here for under $1,000 a month. But if you're going for more comfort and adding in small extras like beach clubs or renting a surfboard, you're probably looking at something closer to $2,000 a month. The great thing is that Bali gives you that flexibility. You can adjust how you live based on what matters to you and how much you want to spend. And having a clear idea of what things actually cost makes it way easier to plan and enjoy your time here without any surprises.
Yeah, and I think you sort of touched on this earlier. If you end up wanting to stay longer, like a lot of people are working remotely or building their own business, you want to start to really use that time wisely so that eventually it's easy for you to just, for example, pay for the longer visa. That's like a digital nomad visa or something like that. You got to look into it, obviously, for different countries. But obviously, awesome video. Go check out the nomadic journey and subscribe over here. I'm looking to help more people basically live a life by design, not one that was designed for you. And yeah. Basically, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.